Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Masechtas Menachot daf Samech Ches. We're going to begin in the middle of Samech Ches off by the new Mishnah. So we've been talking about on the second day of Pesach, in which we bring the Omer offering, which is of barley. So Mishikarav Omer, from the time that the Omer is finally brought in the Beis HaMikdash, Hutter Chadash Miyad. Immediately, all of your new grains you can now eat. Now, Harachaikim, those people that don't know exactly when it took place because they live pretty far away from the Beis HaMikdash, Mutarin Mechatzos Hayom L'Holon. They can already be rest assured that from the time it's midday, then it's okay, without any issue, because they know that Kohanim are Zrizim. They're very quick. They have alacrity in their performance of the avoda, and therefore, because of that, they can already start eating chadash from that point. However, Mishachar Beis HaMikdash, once the Beis HaMikdash unfortunately fell, Hiskin Rav Yochanan Zaka Shehi Yoim Hanaf Kuli Aser. He said that the Yoim Hanaf, that's what he calls the 16th day of Nisan, because that was the day that they would wave the Omer, that the entire day was usher to eat chadash. The entire day you could not eat. Okay. Now, we'll understand what's the logic of this gezerah soon. Who usher, what do you mean that, it's some type of gezerah de Rabbanan? It's usher midaraisa, shenemer ad etzem hayom hazeh, that it has to be specifically that you cannot eat it until this day, which means Ad Viad B'chlal, as we'll see, including that day. And therefore the whole day, min ha-Torah, it's not a gzer d'Rabbanan, l'chor it's a din d'Oraisa. Mipnei mahar chaykim maturan b'chatzos hayom l'halan, mipnei shehein yoidim shein based in misatzlan boy. Why does it mention it here? L'chor, you would think it should be mentioned before. Okay, that's the Mishnah, that no matter what, that's the shita. Okay, that in outside you can already start eating it afterwards at chatzos. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Shmuel Yom Tavayu, as much Beis HaMikdash Kayim, when the Beis HaMikdash stood, so Omer Mater. So in that we understand the Omer itself was the Mater for Chadash, so that doesn't seem to be very difficult. However, Bisman She'ein Beis HaMikdash Kayim, so it's actually they hold here Mizrach Mater. So interestingly enough, they held the sunrise of the 16th already matered, not the night before, but the next morning. That once the sun rose, then it was already allowed. So my timer. So trade koriksi, because there was an interesting reading of these two psukim that are next to one another. Ksiv ad yoim haviyachem, on the day that you bring it. Ksiv ad etzem hayom hazeh. That's not time. It's not totally on when you bring the omer, but it's totally on the finishing of the day. So haketzad, which one is it? So kan bizman shebeis hamikdash kayim, kan bizman shena beis hamikdash kayim. So it's interesting. The pasuk is already alluding to. It's pretty unbelievable. The Torah is alluding to a time when the Beis HaMikdash is not going to stand. That there's still going to be a din deraisa. They're now allowed to eat chadash, and you have the entire day you cannot eat until the day. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shlokish afil b'zman shebeis hamikdash kayim ir mizrach mater. Actually, he says no, it's not. It's pretty unbelievable. It's not the Omer, even the time of the Beis HaMikdash, that matered, but there it was sunrise. As soon as the sunrise is 16th, it says you're supposed to bring it. Mitzvah. So the mitzvah is really, it's better to really wait until you're makar of the Omer, but technically if you ate it before, as long as the sun had risen, so then you haven't violated anything. Mishikar b'Omer Hutter Chadash Miyad. It says only from the time of the bringing of the Omer. Again, it's a mitzvah. Ha'Omer Hayamatir b'Medina U'Shtei Lechem b'Mikdash. So it says that what does the Omer do? It's maters in the Medina, outside of the Beis HaMikdash, and the Shtei Lechem matered b'Mikdash. What does that mean? So again, lemitzvah. It doesn't mean maybe it's still sunrise, but lemitzvah is better to wait until you're makar of the omer. So Rashi says, Mater Chadash b'Medina oichel, to eat the Chadash. Ushtei halechem shivat seres. We know in Shavuos you bring the shtei halechem from wheat. Matir Chadash b'Mikdash. So interestingly enough, minchas menachos min hachadash alma ba'emer tali mulsa. So in the Beis Hamikdash, which were certain rules in the Beis Hamikdash, but when it comes to Chadash, it's pumfakert. That when it comes to the Omer, it matters the Chadash in the ganze Welt, in the Medina, which means in Eretz Yisrael, outside of the Beis Hamikdash. In the Beis Hamikdash, it was only b'shtei halechem. Once on Shavuos came, then Chadash was allowed in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so again we have this dispute. The time of the Beis Hamikdash, as we continue with Beis, is it taka that there's a mitzvah that there's just a mitzvah to wait until the hakravas hamincha, or do we say that's mikra hadin? So interestingly enough, there's a shita that sunrise, as soon as sunrise is the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Mishachar Beis Hamikdash hisrav yacham ben zaka shehi yom hanav kul aser. Now, why is this? This is more in Sukkah and also in Rosh Hashanah. So my time, what did he make this gezerah for? What's the purpose of the gezerah? We hope the Beis Hamikdash will be built very soon. And what will happen when the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt in our generation, which hopefully will happen this year? So people will remember how they practice in the past, and Torah is MS and it doesn't change. So if that's the case, so what we did before will probably be the same now too, which is not true because the Beis Hamikdash changes things. So what will people do? The Yomi will say, "Shtak." And last year, we allowed Chadash to be in already at sunrise. So Ashinami Nechol, we'll eat it immediately at sunrise. For Yadai, but they won't know, they won't realize the Shtakid will have a Yomer. Because there was no Omer, so here Mizrach Matir. That's the reason why, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, that Matir, he knows that before, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, was the Omer that was Matir the Chadash. Mahashta the Omer Matir. So the point is, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, now we just have a new Beis Hamikdash, you can't just start eating like you did before, right at sunrise, because that's only because there was no Beis Hamikdash and no Omer was brought. So therefore, you were allowed to start eating at sunrise. However, now that the Beis Hamikdash is here, so therefore, because of that, a person is going to end up possibly eating before the korban was brought. Now, what does that mean? It obviously means, so what he's basically saying is that even though Me'ikar Adin in Chutz La'aretz, in Me'ikar Adin, before the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt, you really could start eating it at sunrise. But he doesn't allow it. He asters the whole day. Now, if you want to tell me the time of the Beis Hamikdash is just a mitzvah to do it, but the truth is, if you would have eaten it by sunrise, it's not the biggest deal. So mishum mitzayd likum v'ligzor. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why is he making this gezerah if in itself, even if you do the thing itself wrong in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, in 2026, the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt. Okay, so you ended up eating it at sunrise. You didn't violate anything. Okay, you didn't do the mitzvah. So you're gonna make a gezerah for all these years just because of that? So Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai b'shittas Rabbi Yehuda, he actually follows shittas Rabbi Yehuda. The Omer min hatayra aser. That really me'ikar hadin, the whole day is aser anyway. It's not that the day sunrise matters it. That whole 16th day is aser. Shneimar ad etzem yom hazeh ad itzvah shel yom v'gzavi ad v'ad b'chlal. So therefore, what does it mean? So we see clearly that really me'ikar hadin, it's not that you'll end up eating it during the day. The truth is, the problem is the whole day me'ikar hadin is aser. So the zecher mikdash is just simply because that's what it was then too. That even then you had to wait the entire day. It was ad etzem hayom hazeh. So therefore, that's the reason why he makes this gezerah, because that's what it was in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. That the whole day was aser, so too this. So me Savar Kavasi, does he really hold the Rabbi Yehuda? The Mishnah clearly shows he argues. Did not Mishachar Beis Hamikdash Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Shehi Yom Hanav Kul Aser. Rabbi Yehuda Halom and a Torah Hu Aser. So it sounds like they're totally arguing. One says it's a Gezerah, which sounds like the Ramana, and the other one says it's a Dinaraisa. They say about Etzem Yom Hazeh. So Rabbi Yehuda the Katoi. It was actually mistaken to Rabbi Yehuda. Who savar Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and the Rabbanan Kaimer V'lohim and the Raisa Kaimer. I v'hiskin katani. My hiskin dorish v'hiskin. It just means that he made the drasha, and he was masakin this din deraisa based on his drasha. All right. My hiskin dorish v'hiskin. Okay. Rav Papa of Rav Huna b'Reid of Yeshua achli chadash b'orta, that they would actually eat on the night of the Shitzar on the 16th. Nagi Shivtsar, which is really the beginning of the 17th. In other words, the whole 16th day they didn't eat, but that next night they ate. Ksavri Chadash b'chutz la'aretz d'Rabbanan. So why? They lived in chutz la'aretz. Now, according to them, they felt that the din of chutz la'aretz is only din d'Rabbanan, not midoraisa. It's only din d'Rabbanan. Now we know that we in chutz la'aretz have 2 days of Yom Tiv. There's Sveika D'Yoyma, so why don't we hold out Sveika D'Yoyma, right? Because the second day of Pesach, the 16th, we keep as Yom Tiv, right? So maybe it's Ki'u, like that's the 15th, and then the 16th is real, the 17th is real the 16th. So then, why would they be so lenient? It was Sveika Li Chashinan. Because of the suffix, we're not Chayish. Again, it's a Din D'Rabbanan. Okay, so that's the reason why we're a little bit lenient. Rashi says over here, that we're not going to do when it comes to Chodesh, because it's the Rabbanan. Rabbanan, the Ravashi, Achel Bet Safra, the Shivtsar, they actually ate on the morning of the 17th, not the night of the night preceding, but only that next day. Sorry, Chodesh B'Chutz La'aretz D'Oraisa. They actually hold Chodesh is D'Oraisa. And because of that, it says Rashi, Hilcha Chayshina L'Sveika, and that's why they needed it at night. But in the morning they would eat, and they weren't concerned with the kind of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai saying that it's because you're not allowed to eat it the entire day. That much they didn't do. But at least they waited until or Mizrach, sunrise of the 17th, which again because maybe Sveika D'Yom was like the 16th. So Safik D'Reis L'Chumra. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbanan Kaimer V'chi Tikun L'Yom Hanaf L'Sveika. So he said, for a suffix, they were not going to be masakin it. Omer Ravina Amrli Aim. So my mom told me that Vucha, that your father, lo havi ochel chadash el be'orta. He only ate it at the night, the Shivtsar, Nagi Tamnesar. Only the 18th, it was the 17th night, which is really the 18th of Nisan. Savir like Rabbi Yehuda. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda, that you have to wait in the entire night, and the Chayish L'Sveika. So therefore, the 16th really may be the 17th may be the 16th. So therefore, the 17th, I'm not going to eat, and I'm not going to eat the entire day because I hold a Rabbi Yehuda Midaraisa that the whole day is Aser. Okay, hopefully unpack that clearly. Let's now look at question 7. Matan Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai shehiskin Yom Hanav Kul Aser. 2 answers. One answer is and people are going to make a mistake because before the Beis Hamikdash, the sunrise matered it, and now that there's the Omer, they'll still eat it before the Omer is brought, even though it really is the Omer is mater. The other Madir says it's a din deraisa, that he holds like Rabbi Yehuda ad etzem hayom hazeh, and it's ad viad b'chlal. So that's the reason why. The time you're not allowed to eat it ad etzem hayom hazeh the entire day. So that's what they did. Zecha mikdash. TB 20. Ma din shel chodesh b'chutz la'aretz b'yud zayin Nisan ma hastad v'zeh gimel shitas. Pretty good question. Let's see if I got this right. Let's see if TA is the same question. No, they didn't ask anything there. Okay, so this is what I wrote. So the question is, what's the din of the 17th of Nisan? So the question I wrote is, Im Chodesh D'Oraisa D'Rabbanan B'chutz La'aretz. That's a good way to start. So, or im be'etzem hayom hazeh v'ad v'bechlal koyel kol hayom kuloi of the 16th, v'sveika deyoyma al dini deraisa or derabanan. All right, so I basically broke it down. I didn't really break down the three shitas, but obviously the night of the 6th, the point is like this. The 17th, you can either say, I matter it at night, I matter it only the next day, or I even aser that day until the next night. Those are really the three shitas, okay? But it breaks down into that, how that was framed. So, not sure if they marked that wrong or right, because it is correct. I wasn't really maz with the shitas. Okay, let's see the next Mishnah. Okay. Ha'omer ha'yamatir b'medina, as this, we already quoted this, that on Pesach, when you bring the omer, then it's a matir that you can eat chadash b'medina, outside of the Beis HaMikdash. V'shtei halechem on Shavuos b'mikdash. Which means before Shavuos, you're not allowed to bring menachos from chadash. Ein mavin menachos, you can't bring using chadash grain for a mincha offering, ubikurim, which are the first fruits, uminchas behema, koydem l'omer, before you bring the omer, im havi pasul, right? Because it's definitely, no one's allowed to eat it. Certainly not in the Beis HaMikdash, but not even in Medina. However, koydem l'shtei halechem will yaviv im havi kasher. So technically speaking, since it's mutter for people, so therefore, even though it's true you shouldn't have, so between Pesach and Shavuos, there's this interesting time in which Chadash is mutter for people in the Medina, but not in the Beis HaMikdash. So if I brought something which I myself could eat, but I'm matish to the Beis HaMikdash, that's not really what you should do, but yeah, it's okay. Okay, the Gemara is going to explain the reason why. So says the Gemara. So Yosef Rabbi Tarfon v'Kakashale. He asks a question. Ma bein koydem omer l'koydem shtei halechem. What's this whole difference between the two? In other words, why do we say that if you brought chadash before Pesach, that it's pasul, but if you brought it before you brought the shtei halechem, you shouldn't do it, but it's still okay. So Mulfan of Yehuda bar Nehemiah Roy. So in front of him, he said, no. If you brought it before Pesach, no one was allowed to eat it because it's Chodesh, right? Until Pesach comes, it's Chodesh, you can't eat it. No one's allowed to eat it. So how could you possibly bring as a carbon? At least, even though it's true, it's really supposed to be in the mikdash. You have to wait until Shavuos, but technically it's chuter mechloloi. It's mutter by hedget. So Shasar Rav Tarfon so Rav Tarfon was silent, and Sovu upon of Rabbi Yehuda ben Nehemiah. His face turned a little bit like gold-like. Apparently, he was pretty proud of himself. Right? It says Rashi, it's Sameach. He was so happy. Came up with this interesting svara, this beautiful chiluk. So it was Sovu upon of Rabbi Yehuda ben Nehemiah. Rabbi Kiva, he said, Yehuda Sovu panecha. Yehuda, your face is very shiny and you're so happy. Shashava says a zaken, because you were able to answer a zaken. You were able to answer a tarfin. So Tamni, I'm curious. Im tarich yamim. You're gonna have a long life. So Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Loy, also haperik. That time was pras hapesach hoya. Pras is, as the Gemara Rashi says, is shtei shabbos konam haPesach. Pras is like half, so it's halfway through 2 weeks before Pesach started. Basically Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Why is it called that? So the Gemara in Psachim on Daf Vav says you're supposed to start asking Hilchos Pesach before Pesach, really 30 days. Rabbi Shimon says 2 weeks before. Al Shem Shtei Shabbosos Chatzi Lamed Yom. It's half. Parois Karil Hu Lashon Prusa. Like it's half. So it was 2 weeks before Pesach. Oh yeah. Kishali Silat Seres when I went up on Shavuos, Sha'alti Acharav, I asked the question. I said, Yehuda ben Nechemia Heichen Hu? Where's that dude? Yermali. So and they said to me, Nifter, bad news. He's dead, right? So according to his words, that he explained this whole thing was totally with a hedget and this. So again, you have to be careful when you mess around with the Reb Tarfon, okay? So Rashi says, Hanami mutar lehedget. We're going to see that this is also mutar to a hedget, kaidem oimer, before Shavuos. Enu oiser el min dagan. The only iser before Pesach is grains, vo yayin, not wine. But the katana mastisim, im heavy puzzle, lav abikurim de peris ilon koi. It can't be talking about fruit. It must be talking about the grain in our Mishnah. So nesachim bikurim shehikrivom kaidem oimer ksherin. So it says that the nechasim bikurim that were makri before the oimer is kosher. So again, it's not a problem because, as we said, the whole Isser is Chadash, which is grain related, not Bikurim, which is fruit related. So that could be first fruits, could be before. That's not an issue. So over there, when it comes to the grains, when it comes to, says Rashi, these grains, but it's mutter afterwards. So when it comes to wine, it's not that it was osir and became mutter; it was always mutter. So so you think maybe it's different. Kamash Malan. So you say koshkin hacha do itzer klal. Certainly by wine it shouldn't be osir at all. Okay. Sadar nitza gali pil sim. When it comes to shtei lechem on Shavuos, ma'u shiatiru. What is the din of it being matered shlo kesidron, not in the proper order? So look in Rashi. Shlo kesidron lemikdash. Heichi decholof shtei lechem kaidem oimer. Now, exactly why would this be the case? But let's say a person brought the shtei lechem before the oimer, which is typically brought on Shavuos. Heichidami. Kigoyin dezarinhu that you planted bein ha'oimer l'shtei lechem, between Pesach and Shavuos. Right? So you planted some stuff between that time, v'cholif olayhu shtei lechem, the oimer, and you end up mixing the two. My kesidrin sharian. Do we say that if it was done in the proper order, it's mutter shul kesidrin lo sharian, or dilma shul kesidrin nami sharian? So Omarabba Tashma, the pasuk says like this: Ve'im takriv minchas bikurim, that if you're makriv the minchas bikurim, the minchas oimer kasmadaber. That's referring to the oimer. So mehechin ba minasayrin. We know that, of course, on Pesach comes from barley. Ator minasayrin inu minachit, and maybe comes from wheat. So belezer oimer nemer aviv b'mitzrayim. It talks about aviv, the new grain in Egypt, and nemer aviv l'daitis. Ma'av b'mitzrayim sa'irin, just like in Egypt, it was referring to barley. Av aviv hamer l'daris sa'irin. Okay. Rabbi Kiva Omer Matzinu Yachid Shemevi Chayvaso Menachitin. I can find that a Yachid can bring to fulfill his own obligation from wheat, namely the Minchas Chayte, the Chavaso Menasairin, as well as a Chiv from barley, namely a Saita, right? So there's sometimes the Minchas wheat for Minchas Chayte, you sin, and Minchas Saita, Minchas Kanais is a barley. But Sibor Shemevi and Chavaso Menachitin. And we know that when it comes to the tzibor, it's brought from wheat, which is like shtei lechem, avin chavasam and sa'irin, which is the oimer. So v'im ata oimer ba menachitin lumatzinu tzibor shemei v'chavasam and sa'irin. So if you would tell me that in fact it would come from the oimer would come from wheat, then we would never find a situation where the tzibor brings barley, right? So it must be based on this drasha that wheat and barley offerings are brought side for Yachid and side for Tzibor. The only way that could work is if the Omer offering is from barley. Davar acher imato Omer bo menachitin. You can't tell me that the Omer comes from wheat, comes from barley. ein shtei halechem bikurim, because we wouldn't say that the shtei halechem is the first grains. We call it bikurim, the first. So if it's true that the oimer was made also out of wheat, so then afterwards Kesidron, the shtei halechem being out of wheat is not bikurim. Now, so 1 second, the shtei halechem shel the Kesidron sharian. If you want to tell me that it could be flipped, so it's possible mishkachas l'makrib oimer mahanach di'sharish kaidem shtei halechem. It's possible that you could have been makrib the oimer from that which rooted before the shtei halechem, ubaser the oimer, and then after Pesach, the shtakid v'shtei halechem mahanach di'sharish kaidem oimer. The hashta ubaser shtei halechem di'shtakid. So the oimer is wheat from grain that's rooted last year. So where it says mi savrit, do you want to tell me that ksavar bikurim peros kamrinan l'mizbeach kamrinan? It's for the mizbeach. It's Rashi sholi oichel mizbeach kaidem lehem chitin chadashim. It just means that it cannot go in the mizbeach. V'hacha oichel le mizbeach oimer mepri, right? V'ha'achel le mizbeach mepri to hashasa, right? So it's we're talking about it's being consumed. To hashasa, says Rashi, the mahach shasa ninhu, the bechada shaita gidu biyachad v'oimer sharinhu l'achil asadam v'shtei halechem sharinu lehevi bikurim miperes ha'ilon. Okay, we're gonna stop there. Let's maybe see another question. Question 8. Chitin shizarai. So this is just to concretize what we just said. If you have wheat that was rooted after you were makar of the oimer, right? So after Pesach, the wheat was rooted. The katzra and achar oimer, and you also harvested it after Pesach, shel shana haba, for the next year, right? So what happened? You planted it after Pesach, and you only harvested the following year after Pesach. He mavian mehen menachos kaidem haba shtei halechem. So that question is, if it was done this way, do you bring the menachos first? So this was a question we didn't answer. If the shtei halechem is matir shelo kesidrin, that can be done out of order, namely that you first do the shtei halechem and then the oimer can go in hacha, like over here, she'avar lehen shtei halechem, because the shtei halechem was brought first kaidem oimer before you harvested the oimer for the following year, right? So that's the question, if it would work shelo kesidron. Okay, let's take a look at TA18. Chitin shizar shiburai boiker v'sayin. Didn't do this. Adka.